welcome back to the Football Transfer Forum Marketplace with myself and Peter O'Rourke from the Footy Insider, sports journalist, all over the transfer window. How are you, Pete?
Yeah, I'm very good, Tony. A bit quieter now. Now the window has closed last Thursday. In some respects, it was a bit of a damp squib, really, but I think that's a sign of the times with obviously these financial rules creating a bit of uneasy times in the transfer window. But I'm sure when we get round to the summer again, it'll be big spending again and lots of deals and lots of movement.
Yeah, so do you just kick back after the window shuts, or is it just on the news stories? Football always keeps you busy with news stories.
Yeah, football always keeps you busy, no doubt about that. There might not be too many transfers. The Turkish transfer window is still open until Friday, so there might be a few deals there.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that Turkey's still open. Yeah.
Yeah, still open. So they might be looking to sign a few players. There's been obviously a few players from Nottingham Forest have gone out there recently. Serge Aurier, Joe Worrell, gone to
Yeah.
Besiktas. There's been talk of Christian Eriksen being a target for Galatasaray, but it looks like he's going to stay at Manchester United. So anybody who's looking a late move, Turkey is probably their best destination right now. But yeah, I think obviously, as you said, football never sleeps. There's always something going on, whether it's managerial movement or player movement or something else. There's always something going on.
And Jesse Lingard, is he going to Turkey, or is he? What's happening with Jesse Lingard? He seems to be linked with every club on the planet at the moment.
He's going to South Korea. A real shock move. No one, I don't think anybody saw that one coming. He's on the verge of joining FC Seoul in South Korea. Talk of a 2-year deal plus a year option as well for Jesse Lingard. But as you said, surprise move for him. Lots of clubs were looking at the former Manchester United and West Ham man. I'm sure there was a lot of Turkish interest as well, probably in Jesse Lingard, but he's decided to take his career to the Far East and linking up with FC Seoul. So will be interesting to see how he gets on out there.
Great stuff. And as you can see, we've got a special guest this week, Joe McClaren. How are you, Joe?
Hi, Tony. Yeah, well, good, thanks.
Great. We've had a data analyst on the show. We've had Lee Darnborough sporting. That was Alex Taylor from StatsBomb. We've had Lee Darnborough, sporting director of Hull. We've had the guys from goalkeeper.com, including Brad Friedel. And finally, we've got Joe. So, Joe, your background to begin with?
Yeah, so my background came from coming into the game as in the foods of analysts that came into the game. At that point, was fortunate that technology was starting to come into the game. So performance analysis was my route, and I quickly wanted to add a real drive to get involved with scouting and recruitment. So I quickly went into the video scouting side, which with the prominence of Y-Scout at the time just changed the market and changed recruitment departments to what we know them as now. So that got me in at clubs. And then the leadership positions started to change within clubs as well. So I started to take more leadership positions as things went on. So in the end, clubs like Southampton, FC Twente, Derby, on a couple of occasions I've been at, and then ended up with the head of recruitment role at Derby for 6 years, 5 managers, loads of different types of transfer windows. So yeah, you can imagine I've kind of seen it all now in my time and experienced everything. And yeah, most recently, around a year and a half ago, we obviously had the troubles that everyone knows about at Derby. That was a moment really to reflect and to see what's moving forward. A lot of uncertainty, it was. I was working with agencies a lot with my role. I started to see that they were doing a lot of the right things, but there was also a lot of wrong things. And I knew that my skill set could help an agency in terms of working better, smarter, more information, and helping players better on their journey. And I'm really glad to say a year and a half in, I've really enjoyed it. I feel like I've added a lot to our company, New Era, it's been brilliant now, and seeing another side of the market, seeing another perspective now of what players are going through away from the clubs, and what the agents are going through, and also seeing what the clubs are going through from different angles as well. So it's been great to gain that experience now.
It's like you've done the club side of things, and 3 really good clubs there. Probably 2 of them are in the wrong leagues at the moment, but never mind. And now you're sitting on the other side of the table. You're seeing the other side of the fence. So I think that's a brilliant, it's a 360 view of what happens in a transfer, really. So that must stand you in good stead, Joe.
Yeah, it's been great, and one of my main functions really is to provide club perspective to the agency, and that's to help the players understand what the clubs are going through. It's to help us make better decisions, more thought through decisions, in terms of what we're doing, whether to stick or twist at times as well, which I think we'll talk about probably within the January window. So yeah, no, it's been perfect for that, Tony.
And just tell us, it's New Era Global Sports Management company. Just talk to us a little bit about the company. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, New Era started around 15 years ago, and started from nothing. It's been built up through having experienced players, pushing them all the way through their timeline, and now we're starting to see the younger guys coming through. So we're really high ranging really in terms of emerging talent now coming into the fold, but also experience that are actually now a big part of the business is using those older players that have passed through. The likes of a Danny Gabidon, Ashley Williams, and Tom Ferdinand, Rio Ferdinand are all massive influences on helping the players as well that we've got. So yeah, it's one of those, mate, where we're never going to be your Stellas and Wassermans, and you need your outside finance for that, and foreign ownership, which we've seen coming in a lot. And we're also not, we're always going to be big enough to compete and provide great service for the players and for clubs. So I purposely kind of went after this type of size of agency because I knew I could have my most influence with it. And it's proven to be true on that. So yeah, we like to think we could provide a more hands-on service with less players, but still the weight of the market. So yeah, it's a good mix, mate.
I bet the staff five-a-sides are a bit tasty then.
Yeah. There's not as well movers. So yeah, we try and use my legs, mate. But no, the experience that we've got in the building, and they're all as hungry as ever to help players as well, which is great to see. Right. So yeah, that's been a big part of the business.
So Joe, your role, did you take the agent's exam? Did you become an agent, or are you just working on the sort of operational side of the business?
Yeah, 100%. I'm away from the final deals and the money side of things. I'm a support for the players and for the agents. Still brilliant to see everything that goes on and the processes, but at the moment I've stayed away from that. Yeah, I don't know moving forward, but yeah, it's great. A lot of the changes have been welcomed, haven't they, by the new regulations and things. Hopefully, it works its way out that it benefits everybody.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, did you find? Sorry, go on, Peter.
No, Joe, I'm just going to say Joe was probably one of the first that I've seen go from recruitment roles at clubs into an agency. Obviously, 18 months ago, I've seen a couple of other big agencies have now gone down that route, taking recruitment people. One from ex-Spurs, one who's gone into USG, and also SEG in Holland have taken somebody from Ajax, I believe. So do you think that's the way things are going to go now, with maybe agents becoming more and more involved using people from clubs?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was we always called it the dark side, didn't we? And so as a negative side of the industry, but I started to see the good and the bad in it while I was working with it, and I liked what the good was. I liked that the part of the player's journey. I've seen now off the field how much influence and how much they have to go through with players is amazing, really. So I think the agencies have got to be good, and bringing in club people can only help that. I think it needs to be incorporated more within FIFA, maybe trying to at the moment push agents away from it, but I think they need to incorporate them and maybe help them to provide better services, because at the end of the day I think we're helping improve players and helping them get the right moves and better moves. But yeah, it's even as you know, my dad Steve McClaren in the game, and he was someone that I spoke to as well before I came across, and even him of experienced nature was like, no, look, I can see why you would have a place within there, and why you would want to why you'd want to do it. So yeah, I asked a lot of people. I made sure that it's not something that's going to be damaging or take away what I've achieved and things like that. And overall, the what came back was really positive. And yeah, it's helped me. I've been able to keep networking and maybe a little bit more freedom to do things like this, and get around and see what's best practice around the country as well at the moment. So yeah, definitely see it moving forward in this direction.
And do you think, Joe, that you're doing quite a lot on the player care side of things? We're hearing more clubs are employing people to, for player care. What's happening in New Era with player care?
Yeah, look, it really is a 360 type situation, and you've got to be adaptable for everyone's situation. I think you'll know as well, within the game, the actual it's probably at the times when the player's not having the best of times, when we're actually the most busiest, and when it's going well, you're almost not needed as much, and so we're working just as hard on players that need it, and need that help. And I kind of look at my role at the moment as the head of football operations, but it's every day there's something different. I can be an analyst. I can be giving player feedback. I can be networking with clubs. I can then most of the time feel like a bit of a loan manager as well, in terms of helping people get on loan, but also making sure that the clubs are being in good contact with us, how the player's doing while he's there, how the player's feeling while they're there. And also then having the foresight to think, right, if this goes well or this goes wrong, this could be the next steps for the players. So yeah, within this role, there's so much that we wrap around the players. I think the old school one was always the finance side of things, but I've been surprised as well at how much you can help the players with extras as well, because at the end of the day, they don't want to be 24/7 at the training ground, and they're not, and they have a lot of free time, and they need people to speak to, and different aspects that we can bring to that. And at the end of the day, the clubs have got lots of players to work on, and maybe not individual enough at times. So yeah, it's really opened my eyes to how much more the player can take off the field. That's for sure.
So, Joe, it's great to have you on for the full 45 minutes of this session. We're going to get into the January transfer window now, just to review. And literally, I'll start with you, Pete. We know it's been quiet. Just give us your reflections of January.
Yeah, I think it was a type of window that we have been expecting probably for a while. Not a lot of money spent. I think it was the lowest January spend since 2011. £100 million, I think, was spent in the Premier League, and compared to the summertime, which was a spend of 815 million, I think. So that just shows how much money has tightened up, and that's maybe because of those favourite words, PSR and FFP, have really taken hold on a lot of these clubs. There's been a bit more, whatever, constraints on them on how they can spend their money, because they don't want to be facing any punishments like Everton and Nottingham Forest have, and potentially Manchester City further down the line. So it's one of those ones. I think there was only 17 permanent deals made by Premier League clubs during the window, which is staggering, really, and a further 13 loan deals. So that just shows that there wasn't much movement going on in this January transfer window. Yeah, Premier League.
17 permanents. That's really, that's. What about the Championship?
Yeah, the Championship, obviously, spending in January fell to 15 million compared to 25 million the previous January in 2023. So again, money was tight there as well. We know Championship clubs obviously do spend to try and achieve that dream of winning promotion to the Premier League. But you look at the teams up at the top end of the Championship this year, it's the teams that that got relegated last year. So they probably didn't spend too much, but it just showed how tight money was. Leicester saw that deal for the Sensi from Inter Milan fall through the last hour, because they probably had to sell somebody to make that deal come through, and they weren't able to do that. So that deal fell through, much to the disappointment of Enzo Maresca. But I think Leicester obviously are still well placed to go and win promotion, and then it's looking like it's going to be a race between Southampton, Leeds and Ipswich for that second automatic place as well. Ipswich have spent a bit of money. They have tried to make moves in the market to try and close the gap and try and ensure that they are in that mix for promotion. Kiefer Moore, I think, was a good signing for them, but again, that was a loan deal, no actual permanent transfer for that one, but he could be the difference for Ipswich in the second half of the season. But yeah, overall, it's been a very quiet window. Not a massive surprise considering what's happened earlier this season to Everton and Nottingham Forest, and so many clubs really on the fringes of PSR and FFP. Even the likes of Manchester United, they were offloading players rather than bringing players in January, just to balance the books and I think make room in the squad for any potential summer signings. So I think planning for the summer window starts during the January transfer window. I'm sure, as Joe would admit that. So clubs now have to be working ahead, and I think they definitely have to be careful now due to these FFP constraints.
And just touching on the SPL, because we did see a couple of transfers for money and permanent transfers up in the SPL, didn't we? And I noticed that Football Transfer Forum's friend Brian McDermott was very busy at Hibs. They did quite a lot of business in the window. I don't know whether that had to do with the investor from Bournemouth. Was that related to that, do you think?
Yeah, the link up between Bill Foley at Bournemouth and Hibs. Definitely saw a few players from Bournemouth making their way up to Edinburgh. I think 3 players came in from Bournemouth. Mark Hondes, Bevan, a young centre-back as well, and obviously they brought in a young midfielder as well. He came on a permanent deal, but the other 2 were loans. But yeah, the clubs in the SPL, if you're not Celtic or Rangers, it's hard to spend money. Celtic only spent £3 million on the young winger from Rapid Vienna, Nicholas Kuhn, who scored against Aberdeen at the weekend. So Celtic
did he? We highlighted him on the second.
Yeah, he scored.
Was it the first session? I think.
Yeah, he scored against Aberdeen. So Brendan Rodgers will be hoping that he can have an impact, because it's good for the Scottish game now that we've got a real competitive title race as well now, with Rangers showing really good form and momentum under Philippe Clement. They brought in a couple of signings as well. Diomande from FC Noordisland, a midfielder, and also Fabio Silva from Wolves on loan. So they've obviously strengthened the squad to try and help them in this push for the Scottish Premier League title. And while Celtic, obviously some fans were disappointed that there wasn't so much money spent, the only other signing they made was Adam Ida from Norwich, and he could be a bit of a wild card for Celtic if he can find his form, because I think he is a good player. He's been a bit unlucky with injuries at Norwich, but I think given the right platform and playing under Brendan Rodgers, maybe we might see the best of Adam Ida. So, yeah, not a lot of money spent up in Scotland either, Tony, but there was obviously moves. Clubs do need to strengthen. Celtic and Rangers have done business to try and give themselves that edge in the title race.
Yeah, and come on then, Joe. What was New Era's January window looking like? How did that pan out?
Yeah, it looks similar to the rest of the market. The quantity was less, but the right moves were made. There was, of course, you're always going to get frustration ones as well, which I think a lot of the clubs felt frustrations as well. I have a lot of contact with the clubs, and even though there was a lot less activity, it wasn't for the want to try. And I think every club was still flirting and dancing as much as anyone ever does. But I saw it as we can look at it as a positive thing as well. I think that it not only was FFP to play. I think for the first time we were hearing a lot of clubs talking about the right player wasn't out there for us, and we didn't want to fall into that trap. And I've seen it over the years where you get sucked into just wanting to do something for the fans or for the manager, and it can hurt you for 3-4 years. We're seeing a lot of clubs coming out the back end now of high wages, ones that they can't loan out after that, and move on. So yeah, it's been quite refreshing really to see the clubs working, and hopefully there's a positive side of the FFP stuff that it does make clubs think a little bit more about what they're doing and the future of keeping those players. But yeah, in terms of New Era, it was positive. We had a few first loans, which are massively important to get out there. We had a really good loan on the last day of the window, which was a really complicated deal to complete, just because with Mason Holgate, who was an Everton player but was on loan at Southampton. Suddenly you've got a triangle of clubs that are involved, and a player that's in the middle of that, which is a really stressful time for a player and all involved. But luckily that was managed to work out between the 3 clubs in the end, which is you can't believe can happen, but does. And even a younger player that we had moved with, Ben Krause, who's been amazing at Bromley, and he's a young player that's got a really bright future. We've really enjoyed actually seeing these players coming from the National League pathway, and seeing a real difference in the way that they approach and the way that they can kick on, compared to players that have come through maybe the Cat 2 and Cat 1s. They seem a lot more ready for the senior football, in just the smallest of things that they do. So yeah, if you can make your pathway through that National League, there's a real appetite for clubs to take these players now. And Ben moved to Brentford, who saw what they're like in terms of their projections and where they see young players going. So that was that was a great process as well to be involved in terms of there was many clubs that were asking the question on him, and from all different levels, and we didn't discount any level because it was all about his next move and moving forward, and you don't want to go and get trapped somewhere. So that was really, really good to be part of as well. So yeah, still lots to be done, but I think a lot of players that didn't move was maybe the right decision as well.
So he's gone to a great club in Brentford. It's obviously going into the Premier League setup, and Brentford have their track record in developing. I mean, not only do they make good signings of young players, but they get them in the building and they really work hard on them and develop them. And that's a great move from. I mean, I've seen Bromley a couple of times in the last couple of years, and they are a decent side, but it's National League. And that's a massive leap. He's probably going to have to go again to another loan potentially after this season.
Yeah, he's loaned back to Bromley. That was part of the deal for this season, and then the plan will be to move forward again in the summer. But we had Kellen Fisher, who's a right back, who moved in the summer to Norwich from Bromley as well. And these lads have got unbelievable character to be able to take the hits of having the releases in the younger age, to go and then fight their way through seniors that are fighting for mortgages to play and kick them every day and show great mental strength to get through that. They're so set up then to kick through, and they don't take anything for granted, that's for sure, which is really great to see.
Yeah, and Pete, who were your winners who did well? Who do you think did well in the January window?
Yeah, we've talked quite a bit about them, Tony, during this forum. Tottenham probably still for me were the biggest winners of the transfer window, and for once Daniel Levy got his work done early, which will be very pleasing for Ange Postecoglou. Yeah. Timo Werner, I think, was a great signing, came out of the blue. I don't think many people expected Tottenham to be in the market for the German international, but to get him in, especially when Son was away at the Asian Cup, I think was a smart move. And they've got a hungry player who will be hoping to play well and win a place in that Germany squad for the Euros coming up this summer as well. And then probably the biggest transfer deal of the January was Dragusin, the Romanian defender from Genoa. Again, very highly rated young player. Lots of clubs were looking at him. Tottenham even beat Bayern Munich to his signature. They made a late move for him, but the player decided to make the move to Tottenham. He's one for the future. He's probably going to find it hard between now and the end of the season to get many minutes with Van de Ven and Romero, the undoubted first choice centre back pairing there. And they've also planned ahead for next season, Spurs, with the signing of Lucas Bergvall, who's a very highly rated young player, beating Barcelona to his signature. So that was the deal that the Spurs did after the window when he turned 18 to sign the attacking midfielder. So he will be at Tottenham next season as well. So that shows, just like in January, you're planning ahead as well. And they've went and done that deal for Bergvall, who will be a Tottenham player come next summer as well. And even now as we speak, there's deals being lined up for next summer. Brighton have already lined up a deal for a boy I think we spoke about the other week, about Ibrahim Osman from FC Nordsjælland. He is on his way to Brighton next summer as well. West Ham, we're hoping to sign him in the January transfer window, but weren't able to get it over the line, and now Brighton have nicked in, and he will be a Brighton player next year. So again, we know how smart Brighton are in the transfer market, so they'll be hoping they've unearthed another gem.
Yeah, and right, we've got to mention the Right to Dream Academy though, haven't we? Because some of these players who are coming through now, FC Nordsjælland is part of the group, isn't it? And they're getting some top players, Mohamed Kudus at West Ham. They've got to, you've got to applaud what they've been doing in the market over a number of years.
Yeah, they're developing players to go on and play at the highest level. Lots of high hopes for Osman, and he has cost a decent transfer fee, 18 million euros plus. I'm sure there'll be add-ons and extras involved in that as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he does get on when he finally does make the move to the Premier League next summer as well. But I'm sure he's just the latest one off that talent factory that is the Right to Dream Academy in Nordsjælland. So productive for both that academy and for Nordsjælland.
Joe, what about you? Who do you think did well in the January window?
Well, it's interesting because there's kind of two types of signings in January, and if you've got your summer one right, then hopefully you're not doing anything. But the the two types we see are either impact ones to really achieve something, or the like we saw and Pete touched on it, some for the future. So you've seen like a Palace doing a Wharton and Villa doing a Morgan Rogers from the Championship. So those types of signings are a little bit more opportunistic, and looking forward and hopefully taking an opportunity. So, but I look to the Championship for a good bit of business, and you mentioned Lee was on before, and Hull City have really added strongly to positions that they needed, and I know they've lost through injury a couple of players as well, but the capture of Carvalho, I think, was the big headline within the Championship. You know, I worked with Liam at Derby, unbelievable high potential coach, and he's also shown the recruitment side of his game there to convince the player that that's the right place for him to go for, and Liverpool for his development, and also adding Giles on the left side, who we know you know exactly what you're going to get from him in the Championship, which is brilliant. And then we touched on it before with Ipswich. Obviously, they need to add that bit more to then compete with the Southampton and Leeds that have shown you know, that they've got used to the Championship now. And Kiefer Moore, there's always usually a headline striker really that everyone's having a look at in the Championship. I think there was probably less takers this time because of financial stuff, but yeah, Kiefer Moore was probably the one that you look at out of the Premier League that you think, yeah, that could make the difference for us in the Championship. So yeah, massive move for Ipswich there to push forward. But I think it's a sign really of the league situations this year as well, that we maybe didn't see as much impact signings and knee-jerk reactions. I think you know, even a Middlesbrough that brought in money from Morgan Rogers, if the right thing wasn't there for them, they've possibly calculated the risk of going up that wasn't enough to do a short-term deal. And I think we've seen that in the Premier League as well. I think, you know, it's the clubs there are sitting comfortably thinking they should be okay with what they've got in terms of relegation. We know that Everton are having their troubles, and the three promoted teams that are competing for that. So teams like a Palace maybe didn't think they needed to be knee jerk down there. And we also seen that, like you said, in the Championship with promotion, you should think that the top three should be the three relegated teams should be strong enough plus Ipswich. So maybe those ones that would have had to go at the playoffs from the outside have just been a little bit more cautious in their approach.
Do you think that now most clubs nearly all clubs in the Premier League and the majority of clubs in the Championship and in the SPL as well have got sporting directors now? Do you think it might be that obviously the financial fair play and money's being tightened, or the purse strings are being tightened because of that? But do you think the sporting directors are just doing a better job, and it's not, you know, January is not as important as perhaps it used to be?
Yeah, I'd like to think,
Go on, Joe.
Yeah, no, I'd like to think that's true. I think for sure the manager has been diluted. There's no doubt about that. And for a manager, you know, I've seen it over the years, and I don't blame them. You know, the average tenure now of a manager is so low that you want to get the most you can get from the moment you're in there. And possibly, you know, there are 2 or 3 more maybe people at the clubs working now that are looking a little bit further than that, and also clubs that have been through pain. I think you look at clubs that are probably learning from where they've been before and don't want to go down that road again. So I think there's been a bit of a road of hurt that people are learning from. But yeah, certainly sporting directors just take that little bit more heat off the owner. It's another person to try and get through to get to the owner to convince him to spend a bit of money, and also those sporting directors looking further to the future. I saw an interview from Brendan Rodgers, who was talking about the Celtic things, and you could see he was dying to say, like, I was telling him I really want, but even he had to kind of say, like, oh, look, we want to be in a good position for next season as well, and we need to move forward. So yeah, some of the wording seems to be coming out of the managers as well, that they've been hearing from above.
Yeah, and Pete, what do you think? Do you think the sporting directors have had more of an input this, you know, or it's been a steady increase, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think obviously the influence of sporting directors of football are becoming more prevalent. especially at the top clubs right now. There's some really shrewd operators who obviously just don't have any knee-jerk reactions. If they were to lose a player, they might see if there's somebody within the club that can be promoted from the youth academy or something who can maybe make that step up while they're planning ahead for the summer, maybe to see that is the best time to do deals to get value for money, because a lot of the time we've seen over the January transfer windows, there has been a lot of panic buys. They haven't worked out, and it's ended up costing clubs a lot of money, especially the clubs down near the bottom who maybe have that risk, hoping they'll spend to get by themselves out of trouble, but they don't get the reward come the end of the season when they get relegated, and then they're lumbered with players on big wages and maybe no relegation clauses in there as well. So it can lead to all sorts of financial troubles for them. So yeah, I think the role of a sporting director now is vital, and more clubs are having them as well. And looking ahead to this summer transfer window, there's going to be two of the biggest clubs in England probably bringing in new sporting directors. Liverpool in the market for one, also Manchester United now under Ineos looking to bring in a sporting director. So it'll be very interesting to see who ends up going into those two roles. And obviously we expect both of those clubs to be pretty busy in the transfer market, so they'll have to hit the ground running, whoever they do go for those roles.
Going back to the winners, I thought that piece of business from Middlesbrough, bringing Morgan Rogers in, playing him for 6 months and then selling him on, I mean, isn't that just the dream if you're a sporting director? You know, you've got 6 months of playing time, you've had a good player for that 6 months, and then flip him on to the Premier League and you make a nice tidy profit. Surely Steve Gibson must have been sort of thinking, well, that's great. You know, I think they sold Churak on, they sold Jed Spence. They've had 3 tranches of decent transfer fees in the last sort of 3 windows. So, you know, that in itself is good business, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was one that caught everybody by surprise, including Middlesbrough. I saw some quotes from Kieran Scott the other day, and you know, he's just as surprised as anyone. But look, they went into that signing with the reason that he was going to increase in value and move. I think it's come a lot earlier than they thought. But this is it's a big message as well to players out there, and it's something that I push a lot to our players, that, you know, every day is an audition, every training session, every 21s game, every first team game. And the fact is, they played Villa in the FA Cup, and he caught the eye probably in the 5 or 6 games that they'll watch in the opposition scouting before it as well. And he gained a lot of traction within that club, and he became one that, you know, Emery thought, you know what, that's something we need in here, and we've got money to spend on that type of player. So yeah, it was a really, you know, something where the stars align, and we see that happen every so often.
Yeah, and Monchi at Aston Villa, he's kept quite a low profile, because I watch, if anyone's wanting to like look at sporting director, Monchi did a series when he was in Sevilla of sporting director like webinars that they're out there on the internet, have a search of them. And obviously his time at Sevilla was one of the, you know, most successful in player trading. He's had a lot of people who worked under him, like Victor Orta, become successful sporting directors at other clubs. You know, and him coming to the Premier League, I thought was a massive thing. But it's not. I haven't really heard anything from him, and it's been downplayed. Villa are going tremendously well. It's an interesting signing. I thought people would have been talking more about this guy, because he, you know, has the reputation as one of the best sporting directors in the world.
Yeah, he does have a Midas touch. Sorry. He's had the Midas touch when he was at Sevilla. He went over to Roma, maybe didn't work out as well from there. But yeah, he's coming to Villa. He's definitely had an impact there. Their signings, I think, the average age of the recent signings have gone down a couple of years compared to what they were when Steven Gerrard was the manager. I think the average age of signings was 27 to 28, while now they're like looking around 23 to 25. So that shows the avenue that they're trying to go down. They've also signed a young right back from Red Star Belgrade for next season as well. They've brought in this Aussie goalkeeper. Obviously not big name signings, but they're obviously signings for the future that the Unai Emery and Monchi are planning ahead. And who's to say Aston Villa might have Champions League football on offer next season as well. So that's going to give them another massive boost in the transfer market come the summer.
Right, let's kick on and just talk about the summer window. What do you think is going to happen, guys, in the summer window? Because we've had the quietest January on record. We've had very little spending in the Premier League or the Championship, SPL. What do you think will happen in the summer? Do you think it'll be more of the same, Pete?
Yeah,
Go on, Joe.
Well, go on, whoever wants to go. Joe, you go.
No, I was just going to say, I think the signs from all angles is that it's going to go back to what the summer was this season, and we might have an even increase on that. I think it will depend on the Saudi money that will come in again. I think we were a bit surprised that only 25 million was spent by Saudi in January, which probably stopped a lot of action. We think that will come. Don't like to mention for Liverpool fans that the Salah one might be there, which will cause a lot of disruptions. But it's from everyone speaking to and the feelings we get, it's gonna crank back to it. Everyone has a fresh feel, knows what league they're in, knows what they're going to try and achieve next season, and also what you get is a lot of free transfers that will get moved around as well, which you don't get in January. And I think a lot of clubs are going to come to the end now of pre-COVID contracts, which is going to be really interesting. Which a lot of teams have suffered with 3 or 4 year deals before that COVID times. I think there's going to be a lot of free transfers at the end of that, where you just simply can't give them the wages that they were on. So yeah, in terms of transactions, I think there's going to be loads again. Again, it's going to be a massive trading window where you're swapping wages for wages. But yeah, the big clubs are going to go again. I think Peter tell you more, but like the TV deals are only getting stronger. The Premier League exposure is only getting stronger. So yeah, it's going to be big again, I'm sure.
Pete, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we'll have a big splash come this summer as normal. As Joe said there, probably the key for me was that none of the big clubs really strengthened in January. You had no signings from Arsenal, none from Liverpool, none from Manchester United. Obviously, Manchester City didn't do much. They signed the young Argentine Claudio Echeverri from River Plate for the future. So I'd expect them to be busy also. So with the big clubs strengthening, there's a bit of a filter down effect as well then, that the money goes down.
Yeah.
Be it goes abroad or it goes down to the EFL, which was good to see, I think, in January with the Adam Wharton deal. It was good to see money coming from the Premier League into the EFL as well as Morgan Rogers. So I think definitely there will be a lot of big name signings coming in. You've got some big clubs as well with new managers next summer. That's going to be the managerial merry-go-round as well. You've already got Barcelona, who are searching for a new manager. Liverpool, as we know, searching for a new manager, and there will be others, and those new managers will want to make signings of their own. So there's no doubts about that. And I think there's a couple of big names that we'll be keeping an eye out for in this summer transfer window as well. Kylian Mbappe probably being the biggest one to see where he does end up being a free agent in the summer. So if he does end up leaving PSG for Real Madrid, they're going to have to go and look for a replacement for him. And then probably one of the other most high-profile transfers to look forward to in the summer transfer window, which will be a huge fee, no doubt, will be Victor Osimhen at Napoli. He's already suggested that he's made up his mind of that he will be leaving Napoli in the summer, and there'll be a host of clubs, including Chelsea, and I'm sure PSG. If Mbappe does go, he'll be ready to sign the Nigerian. So, yeah, there'll be all systems go for the summer. I think, guys, money will be there to be spent, even with the FFP restrictions and constraints. I think the summertime now, I think most clubs and sporting directors are aware that is the time to do your business. If you're going to do business, you've got time, and you can normally land your top targets in summer rather than January, where the selling club doesn't want to sell maybe those players.
Yeah, and I saw a report about Ligue 1, the top league in France, spending more than the Premier League for the first time in a window. I think it was 150 million or something like that, Pete.
62, I think 162 million. So
162.
Yeah,
do you think that's trend? I mean, they don't normally outspend us in France. Are they having a big push, or is it just normal for France?
I think it was a couple of factors in this one. Obviously, PSG planning ahead, made a couple of signings from Brazil, bringing in Moscardo and Beraldo, two highly rated young players who were linked with Premier League clubs, but PSG jumped to the head of the queue and signed those players for next season. So they contributed a lot to that £162 million fee as well. Also, the case that Lyon find themselves in a relegation fight this season saw them having to dip into their pockets and spend a bit of money as well. They signed Mangala for, I think, close to 30 million euros to bring in the midfielder from Nottingham Forest. They also brought in Said Benrahma FIFA from West Ham, and that
deal got done, did it? I thought it was off.
Yeah.
It was off and on, wasn't it?
It was off and on, but it got ratified by FIFA in the end. So Said Benrahma is a Lyon player. So that's probably
was that a permanent, Pete?
That's a loan,
Oh,
which
the loan.
it'll come with an obligation to become permanent.
Yeah,
So
because
I expect
that's
it to
what I
happen.
was. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You know, there's a lot of loans with options. There's a lot of loans with obligations. So people are going to be, you know, if that player does well on loan with an option, they're going to be signed, hopefully. Or if the obligation kicks in, it's going to be more money spent. So I sort of agree with you guys. I do think it's going to be back to normal. I think this January is a real outlier, and I think it would be back to normal. Joe, do you get many players at New Era going abroad, or is it mostly the English and Scottish markets that you're looking at?
Yeah, of course, the domestic is the biggest pull, biggest priority, and look, we're all lucky to sit in the middle of the most important league in the world. So yeah, everything trickles down and goes on here. But no, we have got abroad. We moved a couple of players in the summer. To abroad, Taylor Moore to France, Valencia, and Isaac Davis doing really well at the moment on loan from Cardiff at Kortrijk in Belgium. We've got a couple of players, one in Portugal and a young one in Holland. A New Zealand international, Matthew Garbutt's doing well for Nat Breda. So we have got that experience of moving the guys abroad, and I think the foreign clubs are being a lot more switched on, a lot smarter now. I think they're recognising that players coming out of the Cat 1 system might not be right for the rough and tumble of the lower leagues in England, but could be really high profile players for those abroad, and they also know that they've an English player playing abroad is a massive pull to English clubs to bring them back in. So the smarter ones are looking at doing them and then trying to sell them back for more when they've got that experience to come back to England. So no, we've definitely felt an increase. I think people like yourself setting up the transfer forums and other platforms that have been going well recently. I think there's been less pull for maybe agents having to link these clubs up as much as before. I think the contact base of these clubs going club to club now a lot more, but also foreign agents that were a little bit nervous before, that thought maybe we don't have the contacts in England or we don't know as many people. I think they found it easier now to get in contact with English clubs. You mentioned sport directors who have been another layer now to improve those relationships with abroad clubs and agents. So I think the market's opened up massively recently due to technology and new platforms becoming strong, and there's a few more middlemen getting cut out of these situations now. So yeah, the Championship's become a lot more fashionable, I think, as well, in terms of abroad clubs looking at those guys. So yeah, all in all, I think and then we're always going to get spikes in leagues as well of like the Saudi situation and situations like that. So yeah, really, really interesting. Something that we definitely have to keep our finger on.
Yeah, and look, we're just getting towards the end of the session. There was a question I did want to ask you, Joe, is with the new FIFA agent regulations coming in, how did you guys find it? Was it quite easy? Was there complications? Did all the guys pass the FIFA exam in the company, or what happened?
Yeah, no, we had, obviously there was two rounds of exams before the window, so there was no problems with that side of things. I think the biggest problem was the uncertainty that it created just before the window started. I mean, it was crazy timing to start saying what new regulations were going to be, and for the FA to implement that. I think just for this window there was no issues. There was no problems with regulations in terms of affecting transfers and things like that. I think it's just more now for the agencies to understand what they are going to be. I don't think the clubs are kind of it's just one more thing for them to worry about and think about. So I think they're avoiding it a little bit at the moment as well to see what the actual regulations are going to be. We foresee a lot of changes that are going to come, so it's very hard to kind of understand at the moment what it's going to look like. But we're just hoping it's for the better. We welcome the regulations if it's going to improve agents and agencies and what they can provide. But I think it's also important that everyone knows that the agent side of it is very important with facilitating deals and developing players and looking after players. So hopefully it doesn't do too much damage to the industry.
Yeah, and I still say I've always thought this, that the club secretary's job, particularly in a window, is one of the toughest jobs in a football club, especially if there's a number of deals. You know, you get a small thing wrong and it can have massive repercussions. So, you know, I'm going to an event in at the back end of this month where we're going to talk about the FIFA, the new sort of what's going to happen next with the FIFA regulations, with all of the court cases and everything. But it's just interesting to hear how it didn't really have an impact on the ground in January, even though everyone was panicking when we were getting emails and directives just before New Year's Eve. But no, that's interesting, Joe. So look, just before we round up, Pete, thank you so much, Joe, for coming on today. Really great to see you. And no doubt we're going to be announcing the next couple of football transfer forums in a week or so. Hopefully you can get to that. And you know, any final word from you, Joe?
No, appreciate being on, and look forward to seeing you next time at the forum. Yeah, just keep putting good events on. I think, you know, I've learned more than ever coming away from the clubs, having a little bit more, seeing the wood for the trees a little bit more. It's so important for everyone to be networking and sharing information. And I think that's been definitely for the betterment of the industry at the moment. So yeah, great stuff.
And Pete, thank you so much. Our sort of transfer guru. Last word from you. I've really appreciated you doing this series of seminars with me because of the number. I mean, your network must be fantastic. Just the number of transfers you get info on is incredible.
Yeah, it's thank you for having me, Tony, and inviting me on and everything. I've really enjoyed it. It's another string to my bow doing these webinars as well. So I've enjoyed it, and hopefully I've got some of my transfers right during the January transfer window. I haven't got too many wrong and allowing those Twitter trolls to get at me or anything. But no, it's been all fine, mate, and just getting ready for the summer when hopefully there'll be a lot of business, and hopefully you guys will be busy as well.
Okay, thanks, guys. That's it. We'll see you soon. Hope to see you at a football transfer forum event. Thanks for everyone who's watched.